Dragonflight is going back to the roots of WoW, like vanilla to Wrath of the Lich King game-wise, while keeping the good stuff from later expansions. But what that means, do you agree with that statement? I think what they mean by going back to the roots of WoW is that they mean they're letting go of the progressive overtime systems, the borrowed power systems. Yeah, exactly, Free Gem. I had to like translate in my mind, like what are they talking about when they talk about going back to the roots? So I think they're talking about that. And as of yet, knock on wood, as of yet, there are no systems like that in place. So, in that regard, they are correct. At the same time, do gotta wonder, like, what exactly is the content that we are going to be doing at max level? Because while it's fair enough to say that they're going back to those roots, at the same time, I remember back in Wrath of the Lich King, where I was doing the tournament, and I asked my guildies, like, look, I've done the Argent tournament, I geared up on my emblems, what do I do now? And they were like, go raid. And I was like, I don't want to raid. And they were like, go PvP. And they were like, don't... Go PvP, and I was like, I don't want to PvP. So what else can I do? And they were like, well, you're shit out of luck. Is that better than having a forced system upon you, like a Covenant or whatnot? I would say yes. But at the same time, I am looking for stuff to do in my video game. So, well, by that I mean, am I gonna get a Brawler's Guild, or a Mage Tower, or a Chromie scenario, or what is it that you're going to occupy me with beyond the regular raiding and PvPing? Now, thankfully, we are in a time where Mythic Plus is actually a thing. So, if they have like a bit of extra development in Mythic Plus, think, for example, specific gear that have like bonuses for Mythic Plus, or like the affixes, or like really killer dungeons for Mythic Plus, I think that they have a system which goes beyond just the raiding and the PvPing. I've seen, but I've not experienced this, but I've seen that there's like a grindy area where you get Torghast power upgrades. That looks like a ton of fun. Like, yes, you're farming moss, but at the same time, you get the craziness of Torghast, which could be fun. Again, potential is there if they don't fuck it up. There's dragon riding, which is a lot of fun. And I wonder if they're actually going to give us the option of organizing races ourselves. Think back to the example Mr. Pandaria, where they sold like little race flags. Or like in Genshin, you can make like your own racetracks and have your people come in and try out your racetracks. I would love it if we could make our own racetracks throughout the zones. Like community events, right? Yeah, so in that regard, I'm curious like what is going to be my endgame and will it be engaging? But that's very much personal taste. At the end of the day, back to the question, like it's going back to its roots and it's letting go of those borrowed systems for now. And I really hope they're going to stick with it. Similar, and there are signs that they might have like actually changed their mind and learned lessons. Because I clearly remember in Shadowlands that the reason behind pulling the ripcord and not doing it was that they didn't want people to be in a situation where they had to change their loadout every single dungeon or raid or whatnot. So they came up with these arbitrary systems of you can only swap around 5 times a day and you have to pick a covenant. But if you want to swap, you'll have to go through this and this and this and this and this and this and this. All these hoops, all these loopholes. Whereas in Dragonflight, boom! What? You want a loadout? You can have a loadout. You get a loadout. And 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 they're like, yeah, we want you to be swapping around now. We want you to customize your kit for individual situations. Great. Power to the player, right? Fantastic. And I love those changes. So far, definitely good signs on the horizon. Where do you change spec? That is the beauty. That is the beauty. Wherever the fuck you want. Wherever the fuck you want, you could change your spec. Although, maybe rested areas. I'm pretty sure I am wherever I want to be now. So I'm just changing my specs. Boom. How nice is that? I don't know if they're going to be like tomes or whatnot. But even if they do tomes, who the hell cares, right? They get some tomes in your inventory. You can do that now too. No, because if I wanted to do it right now, Paku, I would have to fly back to my Covenant and I would have to change my little trinket thingy system menu. And don't get me started if I wanted to get like a different power setup altogether. I would have to swap over to a whole different Covenant and have to go through their Renown campaign and be like, okay, now I can use my Kyrian thingy. So the point that I'm trying to make is that with Legion, like Legion is a really good example. But with Legion, we got like the borrow power system of working on your artifact. And in Battle for Azeroth, it was working on your necklace. And then in Shadowlands, it was working on your Covenant and your souls. As carrot on a stick, as hamster wheel, as shit as those systems became, they were stuff to do. They were a motivation to go out and do stuff. As well as there was content around it. Think, for example, a Torghast, where you had to go in to get like your necklace, right? Now, Torghast could have easily been a place where you get your just transmog or just fun upgrades that are not related to power. But I'm looking forward to the idea of, okay, so you're stripping out something like a Covenant, like a necklace, like an artifact. What are we going to get in return? What is it that's going to drive me to keep playing the game at Endgame? The standard that I personally uphold to World of Warcraft is that you have your PvP, you have your PvE, which is raiding, and now we also have Mythic Plus, right? Those are the three things that we have at Endgame that usually are the standard of the expansion. But when we think back to like an expansion of Mist of Pandaria, where they started adding pet battles and they started adding the farm, or Legion, like I said, Legion was a phenomenal example where we worked on our order halls and our mounts and on like not the Timeless Isle. The Timeless Isle was mopped once again. But there was like Argus, and there was the Mage Tower, and there was the Chromie scenario. Stuff to do in-game that were completely irrelevant when it came to like upgrading your character, but was still fun content to go through, right? They weren't content, they were just the reason to do the content. They're still there, right? Well, there are no covenants, as far as I'm aware, in Dragonflight. Like, we have the Renown menus, which is do like world quest, and is like do this, do that. But as far as I'm aware, there's no massive system attached to that, if that makes sense. Professions, maybe. I haven't tried out professions yet. But that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying, just for the record, I'm not saying that it's not there. I'm just pondering, like, what is it going to be? What do I think changed in the game? Or the player base, that the game could be standout during the first few expansions, but not anymore. What do I think it changed about the game? Oh god. There's no clear answer to this one, Holy. There's no clear answer as to what changed when it comes to the numbers. I remember years and years back a JonTron video in which he pointed at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, where there was a dip in subscriber numbers. And so there must have something changed between Wrath of the Lich King and the Cataclysm. But then I think back to Legion, which in my opinion was a fantastic expansion, chock full of content. I think back to Mist of Pandaria, which was a fantastic expansion. So to say that they didn't create good expansions after Wrath of the Lich King is, in my opinion, bullshit, right? But what has changed over time? I think when we think to, okay, what exactly happened is, part of it is the people at Blizzard have changed. Like, the team that worked on stuff like Classic or Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, or whatever, the teams have done a massive overhaul. We've seen like 2 or 3 new presidents over at Blizzard Entertainment. We've seen the Activision influence with a Bobby Kotick and everything else that's been part of the development. A lot of things behind the scenes. Behind the development is completely different than when the game was, right? So that's part of it. But then again, there's also time. At the end of the day, they can drop a dragon skin, they can drop a demon hunter skin, a panda skin, something skin. At the end of the day, you're still pushing your buttons, you're still doing your rotation as you bring down the big bads. So time is a massive factor, and how long does something that you do over and over and over again stay fun and engaging? And that is the difficulty of being a game developer. Because on the one hand, you have an audience that you want to please, and you have an audience that you want to stay happy. And on the other hand, you do want to bring in new players, and you want to reinvigorate your game, and you want to try out new things. And when it comes to trying out new things in World of Warcraft, as we've seen with systems like island expeditions or war fronts or covenants or stuff like that, they try, but then they drop the whole concept and they try something else again. And I think a much better idea would be to learn their lessons and take the elements that work, rather than come up with completely new wheels, if that makes sense. I heard a comment before from other people, just felt to me with the same amount of content, just no hand holding to force us into the content. Am I feeling though? I mean, if I look at Shadowlands, it's difficult to say. But if I look at the announcement that they made for Dragonflight, it seems to be a light announcement. Now, that's not necessarily bad. At least they're not over-promising, right? But we'll see. We'll see what actually going to be the product at the end of the day. And every game is the same that way. To an extent, but like I said, they do try to invigorate, they do try to keep it fresh and keep it interesting, right? Take good things and keep them. We'll see when next expansion after Dragonflight is here. Like I don't envy the developers that are behind World of Warcraft, because you're never gonna get 100%, right? It's always gonna be a thing. But at the same time, looking at Shadowlands, like Shadowlands is just such an odd ducky to me. Because it's just not a fair, comparable expansion to the rest of them. The eye thing, Diffie, is me being in a dungeon finder, which is normally next to the map. Now it's me in a dungeon finder. What change that could satisfy player earlier with less stuff, but can do the same extent now with more content? It's weird we cannot be pleased anymore. Oh yeah, to that, by the way, so we got like the development side, we got the time side, but we also got the mindset of the gamer side that has changed. And this is one question more for the philosophers out there than anything. But is there still a market for MMORPGs? And or are other games more prominent? And I'm talking more about popularity and money making. Because at the end of the day, like we see currently the rise of Guild Wars 2 as it releases on Steam, and all of a sudden there's an influx of players. Final Fantasy XIV, of course, is a massive example where an MMORPG is absolutely rocking it. But overall, in the general gaming sphere, like where exactly is the focus? Like World of Warcraft, back in the day in Classic, it was a monster. An absolute monster because it was so accessible. People forget. When they say that Classic was so hardcore, they forget that WoW became popular because it was so accessible. And incredibly addictive, you know? So that is, like, I personally wonder, and I have no clue if that is a thing or not, but I wonder if there's still a massive audience when it comes to MMORPGs. And I also wonder when it comes to the development point of things, like how that's going to evolve. Like if I would see that a mobile game brings in that much more money than an MMORPG, then where as a gaming development company would I put my focus, right? Those are things that I wonder. During the years, the focus has shifted from complex and interesting to fast-paced and quick. It's a global phenomenon that you can also see with apps like TikTok. And of course, that doesn't count for everybody, but I really wonder. But then again, that's also something like I wonder how the internet actually influences our development, our attention span. I notice it for myself that if I spend a lot of time behind a PC, I have like 10 seconds for you, and then my mind needs to be distracted. It's mental, man. And we're getting a generation now that has been grown up with tablets in their baby cribs. Like my cousin, 4 years old, knows how to work a tablet. It's fucking mind-blowing to me. It's great. And I'm honestly wondering how that evolves. Very classic, like hardcore gaming, as you said, would have flopped nowadays. Define flop. They literally re-released Classic, and it was immensely popular. So I don't think we can consider it a flop. Would it be as popular as it was back in the day? I don't think so. I'm a new arrival with the Dragonscale expedition.
Take this guide. It shows the embassy's many amenities. If they weren't all in disrepair, that is.
Okay. Holy fucking shit.